Hello and welcome to Pickleball Therapy, the podcast dedicated to your pickleball improvement. I hope you're having a great week. Appreciate CJ Johnson stepping in last week for the podcast. That was awesome. It's always good to hear her perspective on what's going on with sports and how we can best engage with the beautiful sport of pickleball. This week's podcast, I want to dive into a subject that I've been thinking about, and I'll explain. You'll understand as we piece it together. But basically, it's about figuring out where we are and, what will do most work for us right now in terms of our game and our development. I think you'll find it an interesting way of of refocusing ourselves and our what we're doing. Before we get into that, a couple of quick notes here. One, I've been trying out the new PaddleTech shape, relatively new PaddleTech shape, the GTOC. And I like it a lot. I like it. I can't say I like it more than the traditional Bantam, which is the Annalee Waters Bantam 14 millimeter. But the GTOC is a different shape. It's a little bit more elongated. It's perhaps a little meatier if you want to think about it that way. I don't know if that's a good term for a paddle, but that's why I think about it. It's just a little more substantive when you swing it. And I came from tennis, and so that's something that appeals to me. I would say, with that said, still highly recommend. My first go-to recommendation is the Annalee Waters 14 millimeter Bantam paddle, ALWC it's called. That's my first go-to for any player. That'll work for any player. I use it. I love the paddle. I've been playing with it for about a year. If you come from tennis or you want an elongated paddle feel, the GTOC is a good option. I would caution you, though, if you it is going to feel a little bit heavier when you swing it because of the shape of it. That's just natural. But anyway, those are two options for you, and we have codes at links, I should say, at betterpickleball.com that'll get you a small discount if that's something that you're interested in. One other bit of housekeeping, we have our strategy clinic in August coming up. It actually ties into today's presentation. That's what spurred me on to think about this. I was preparing some materials relative to that strategy clinic, and it got me to thinking about how we, as pickleball players, sometimes can get a little bit derailed in our work, and so I wanted to address that in today's episode of the podcast. And then in the riff, I'm going to talk about something that CJ reminded me about that she and I had talked about previously, but I had not brought up in the podcast, which is we're going to use the Wimbledon women's finals result to talk about how loss or losing, right, and losing, badly, if you want to think about it that way, but certainly losing by a lot of points, how we can frame that perhaps more positively for ourselves. So let's start into the main topic today, which is this idea of figuring out where we are and what's going to most help us with our games. And the clinic that we have coming up is about the must-have shots for 3-5 level play. And there's different layers to this thinking when you think about, must-have shots for 3-5 level play. One layer is, it's really honing in on for 3.5 level play, which I want to be clear, 3.5 level play is solid play, right? 3.5 to 4.0 is where a lot of pickleball players, play their games, and that's awesome pickleball world to be in. Obviously, as pickleball players, it's good, I think, to always strive to, can I learn something new? Can I, improve in an area, right? Can I go deeper with the game? Those types of things. Those are all very good, I think, great ways to engage with the sport. But the reality is that, 3.5 to 4.0 is where a lot of play is played, and that's good pickleball. One other note here is that 3.5, the term 3.5, is much broader than it seems, meaning and we've talked about this in prior podcasts, but 3.6 to 3.7 is a world of difference. Like legit 3.6 to legit 3.7, legit 3.7 to legit 3.8, a world of difference again. And I think sometimes we can get bogged down in I've been in 3.5 forever. Well, that's you're navigating an entire universe of pickleball between 3-5 and 4-0, and that's okay. And then 4-0 on, same thing. It's 4-0 to 4-1, 4-1 to 4-2. But one approach, one aspect of this way of thinking about it, must have shots for 3-5 level play, is that it lets us hone in on what really matters based on where we are in the game. And I'll give you guys a quick side story here. So I was playing on Monday this week, and before our camps, and there was a local player who is really good friends with one of the players on the group. I befriended her as well, so she was watching some of our points, and she's coming to the upcoming camp. And I hit a ball, winner basically, cranked it right next to the sideline. It was close, but it was in, but it was close. And I'm always like, oh, that was, too close for comfort kind of a thing. And I looked at her and I go, okay, so don't yell at me tomorrow when I'm talking about margins for error and suggesting that you use a margin of a couple of feet. And here's the difference. If I'm playing 3-5, right, and sometimes I'll play open plays, I don't need to take that much risk with my shots. It's just the reality, right? I can allow my opponents to do a lot of the lifting for me. When I'm playing in this group, this is a much more advanced group. If I play it safer, if you will, if I don't take risks, that ball's just going to come back. So when I get a shot or get a ball that I can do something with, I am going to do something with it. Okay. But that's because it's relevant to the level that I'm currently playing. And what happens oftentimes is, you'll watch 3-5 level play and they're trying to hit shots the same way that Ben Johns hits it, or Annalie Waters, or any pro that you like hits them, right? But you're not facing pros. And so you don't need to hit the balls the way they hit them to end their rallies. But we're trying to do it at 3-5. And that's not being aware of where we're at right now in our games. That also goes to the shots that you must have, right? So, what shots are absolutely critical to playing 3.5 level pickleball, right? And we as coaches, part of our job is to prioritize that for you, right? If I can't tell you what's really going to help your game at 3-5, then I'm not sure exactly how I'm going to coach you, right? Or at 4-0, or based on understanding of the framework of pickleball and things like that. It's nearly impossible for us to do our jobs. So this project of like the must-have shots, and we have it by different levels, right? It seeks to boil down the things that are absolutely critical to playing at that level. And then what we did as well is we explored shots that are optional. So you have the must-have shots, right? And so you're good there because, again, they're must-have. Without them, not going to be able to do the work that you want to do at that level to be successful. So we have those. Then we can look at optional shots, right? So what other shots could we work on that'll improve our play, but aren't must-have shots? They're not required to get the job done. And then, importantly, we also look at shots that are traps, right? What to avoid, or areas to avoid. And those are the areas that I think are very costly, actually, for players who are earnest in their desire to improve, right? Who are earnest in their will and in their wish to become more competent pickleball players. They end up getting bogged down in these areas that are, not necessary, not going to help them, distracting them from what they actually need. So we explore that as well, right? To help guide the player in terms of the path that they're going to, that they should take if they want optimal improvement in their play, in the shortest amount of time, right? If they end up in the distraction, then they're not focused on the must-have shots, and maybe they come to it later, but now they've spent a couple years on stuff that really isn't going to help them with their game. As an example, I'll just throw one out here. So 3-5 level play, you don't need a roll volley. I know roll volleys are sexy and, awesome. Let's hit roll volleys, right? Good. But you don't need it at 3-5. It's not adding that much to your play. And potentially detracting you from other areas that are more important, and also detracting you from the number one priority, I would say, at 3-5 is consistency. Nothing else, just consistency. Just hit another ball, hit another ball, hit another ball in the court with intentionality, right, towards a target and things like that. And you're going to play great. You're going to kick butt, as they say, without the need for all these other shots that are just going to not only distract you, but they're also going to increase your inconsistency or decrease your consistency, depending on how you like to frame it. But in either event, working against you and you being the most successful player that you can. So one concept here is this idea of having an understanding of where I'm at right now, and where you're at is where you're at, right? That's it's fine. That's just life, right? So that's where I'm at, and then pursuing areas of the game that are going to most help you continue to advance as a player helps you then avoid getting a YouTube video that says become 5.0 player in 90 days, which is nonsensical unless you're a 4.95 when you watch the video. 99% of players can't handle this. All these just clickbaity things that you come across, right? That's likely not going to help you, and it's likely actually going to I don't want to use the word harm, because it doesn't really harm, but it just it'll delay you. It'll pull you away from what you should be focusing on, again, if your objective is to play the best you can where you're at right now. So knowing where you're at, I think, is super valuable, and keeping that focused on or keeping that in the center, right, of your thinking when you're looking at all this information coming your way about what you should be doing with your play. And then the other thing I think that's really important here is, we get sometimes we start thinking that, like, if I say to you, you need these to play 3-5, and let's assume right now you're a 4-0, you're tuning me out. You're like, I don't need that, right? He's saying 3-5, so that's not for me. Or let's take it another step back, right? You're playing 3-5, and I tell you these are must-have shots for 3.0. All right? You're like, yeah, that's not for me. That's for 3.0. Here's the mistake there. To play 4.0, you need the 3.5 shots, and you need the 3.0 shots, and you need the 2.5 shots. To play 3.5, you need the 3.5 shots, the 3.0 shots, and the 2.5 shots. Because pickleball, as I would submit to you, most everything in life, it's cumulative, right? It's you're building one layer on another. You can't skip over what a 2.5 needs and then just say, okay, I'm going to add these shots as a 3.5 and I'll be an awesome 3.5. That's just not how the world works. Excuse me. You need to have the prior skills in order to add the new skills. Okay. So when you hear something like these are shots that a 3.0 must have, and you're a 3.5, I would suggest, from a source like us, who I believe is a reputable coaching source, I would suggest taking a moment and checking yourself. All right. Do I have those shots? Am I competent and proficient in those shots? And if I'm not, maybe I take a moment and I get those shots, because now it might be those shots that you need to keep advancing. Those may be the shots that are holding you back. You see what I'm saying? So, like, the shot from before, you didn't develop it, and that's fine, right? No big deal. You don't have it. You have these other shots, and you kind of piece these pieces together, and let's just complete the picture. So you need 4 things to become a 4.0, just to use numbers, right? And you have developed 3 of the 4, and so you're playing this 3.5 level, which is fine, right? You're playing 3.5 level with 3 things. But the one that you're missing is actually a 2.5 skill that you just never really fully developed. And so you're being held back, right, from your advancement by a skill that is in theory behind you, but is it really behind you? And I would submit no, because of the layering. So the 2 concepts are, 1, here's where I'm at. And again, it's fine. Wherever you're at, you're at. So these are the things that I need if I want to, in fact, advance. And if I don't have the things behind me, I need those as well if I want to advance. So those are I think, helpful concepts when you're trying to improve as a player in order to be efficient about your improvement and also to do the things that are actually going to help you, right? As opposed to being distracted by things that likely will not. All right, so that's the main message today. Let me dive straight into the riff. So what happened in the Wimbledon final was you had the American player who made it to the finals of Wimbledon, and it was super exciting for her. She had taken a break. She had been dealing with some mental issues and things like that, and so and had I think she had taken either a 7-month or 17-month break from tennis. Had come back after the break, and then had basically made it through the Wimbledon championship in good form. In the quarterfinals, she was able to defeat the number one player in the world, the Aryna Sabalenka, in 3 sets. It was super exciting match. It was just a tremendous effort by her, and so she comes out of that super exhausted. I'm confident in the semifinals, and then she has to go into the finals, and she's facing top player, former champion of multiple Grand Slams, Iga Swiatek, I think it's pronounced. And so, it's just it doesn't go well. Okay. She loses 6-0, 6-0. Anisimova loses 6-0, 6-0 in the finals. And it's a big deal, right? Because she lost 6-0, 6-0, right? Didn't complete a game against Swiatek. So the question I ask myself is, you have a choice. I'm going to give you a choice. You can win the semifinals in 3 sets against the number one player in the world, knowing, let me be clear about this, knowing that you're going to make it to the finals and lose 6-0, 6-0. Or you can lose the semifinal in 3 tough sets and be lauded for being a great warrior and not have to deal with the loss in the finals. What do you pick? Winning in the semifinals and getting trounced right in the finals, or losing the semifinals and saving yourself the quote-unquote embarrassment of the loss in the finals? I would submit that the better answer, the fuller answer is, why don't you win the semifinal and then accept whatever happens in the finals in terms of even a 6-0, 6-0 loss? I think that is the better approach, as opposed to, oh my God, I don't want to lose 6-0, 6-0 in the final, so I will surrender the win in the semifinal to avoid myself the embarrassment of losing in the final. I think you'll have a stronger and more complete relationship with the sport and your ability to compete in the sport, with the understanding that there are times that you're going to go out there and you're going to get pickled. You're going to lose 11-0. Okay, because every time you go out to play at level, you're putting yourself at risk, if you will, right? Meaning you're putting some skin in the game, and the possibility is there that you will lose 11-0. I've lost matches 11-0, 11-0 in my past, in tournaments against pro players when everything was mixed together. Seniors and young players were all like jammed together, and I've gone out there and I've competed the best I can, but it happens. And if you're not willing to put yourself out there like that, you don't have those growth moments. You don't have those experiences, those abilities. And the other thing is this, right? You don't have the chance of potentially even winning that game, right? Anisimova lost 6-0, 6-0, but she was in the game. She made it to the game. And, I think the hen ringing afterwards with the 6-0, 6-0 is kind of silly, frankly, given her accomplishment, right, of taking care of herself first, right, with the mental health break that she took, coming back and making it to the finals of Wimbledon. Second place at Wimbledon is pretty darn good. Instead, a lot of the focus at the end, because that's how we live in society these days, is, oh my God, it's 6060. Oh Lordy, 6060. And that's, again, that's an unfortunate societal societal fault, not a fault of Anisimova for sure. And I think she handled it well afterwards, the way she approached it, and, it happened, and, it is what it is. But I think, for us here, let's think about that for ourselves in terms of our willingness to put ourselves on the line, put ourselves out there. There are times that we are going to have losses that we are not going to be happy about. And that's just part of the deal about playing any sport, including this beautiful sport of pickleball. So that's this week's podcast. I hope you enjoyed the podcast. If you did, consider rating and reviewing it. Even if you didn't, rate and review it, right? Share with everybody what you think about the podcast. It helps us reach other players. They can make an informed decision about whether this podcast will help them out. And as always, if this podcast resonated with you in some way, particularly if you have a friend of yours who is floundering out there, chasing tip after tip after tip every week and frustrated, share this podcast with them, and maybe it'll help focus them and center them on where they're at in their journey and what they need to actually make improvement in their play. I hope you have a great week, and I will see you next time on the next episode of Pickleball Therapy. Be well.